friends. Welcome to the Creative Impact Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Caldwell, and I'm so happy you're here. Each episode, I take some time to chat with fellow artists about life, faith, and the impact of the arts.
When you first start and you're getting bigger and bigger gigs and more, you think, man, I'm on the track. Like, I'm going to the tippy top, whatever. And you just think bigger. I mean, I guess I always thought, and I think this is, I need to hear this for myself. So let me just say this to myself, and maybe people who are listening, comparison kills your joy. We know that, but you start looking around and you go, man, well, I'm not the Skit Guys. I'm not that guy. I'm not, I'm not that comedian. Look, and you always just think, I want that gig.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of life, when we were kind of going, was a lot of that was just, I want that gig, not being content in the gig that God's given you, And so that I wrestled with that and became bitter for a lot of those years of just, God, why aren't you giving me more bigger, larger doors?
Yeah.
And it was hard, but through it all, I mean, I guess I've just now come to this realization the last couple of years of like, hey, I got you, and I'm going to put you where I want you to go. And you just need to be obedient in what I give you.
You guys, we are officially at episode 50. This is seriously blowing my mind a little bit that we've made it 50 episodes into this podcast. I just want to say a huge, huge thank you to every single person that's listened to the show and all of you that have sent notes or messages of encouragement along the way. And it really has been such a fun journey. Not only are we at episode 50, but we're coming up on the 1-year birthday of the podcast. So super excited for what's to come. Next week, I have my amazing friend and coworker, Kayla Sokoloff, joining me for our last week of the school year episode, where we're going to reflect back on this past school year and just everything that we've learned and really grown from through teaching in a pandemic. So I invite you to join us next week for that. And then a few weeks down the road, when we hit our official first birthday of the podcast later this month, I'm so excited to announce that my very first episode guest, Stella Omblade, will be coming back to join me for that birthday episode. Stella's episode has been one of the most popular and listened to episodes of the show thus far, so I can't wait to have her back and get to catch up and for us to reflect on this past year with the podcast. Now, back to today's episode. You all are in for a treat today. Chris Hurt is joining me for episode 50. Chris is a husband, father of 2 teenage children, and has been a student pastor for over 25 years. He loves to teach the gospel and believes that the Bible should not be boring. Chris shares about what got him into youth ministry and why he stayed. He's passionate about the church incorporating more creativity and seeing people use their giftings. With a love for comedy and a desire to be in ministry, Chris really wrestled with the question, can ministry and comedy coexist? Chris started doing skits and sketches for his own youth group in the late 90s. Through a chance meeting, he saw one of the Skit Guys in a Chili's in Amarillo who helped launch him and a lifelong friend into some of their very first paid performances. Right now, he's a part of a sketch duo known as Hurt and Manley. You'll hear more about the journey of how that got started, but as a part of Hurt and Manley, Chris has performed in various places around the States, mainly to student groups at camps, weekend retreats, and one-night evangelism events. I love how Chris explains, when we can laugh, then truth can enter our hearts. Throughout our conversation, Chris and I dive into the definition of success, walking in your gifting, and identity. You may have heard the phrase that laughter is good medicine, so get ready to be feeling awesome after this episode. Enjoy my conversation with Chris Hurt. First off, Chris, welcome to the podcast, and super excited to get to know you more. I've heard great things about you from my stepdad, Bobby Dean, so it's going to be fun.
Bobby Dean.
Yes.
Yeah. Good guy. Good. You're in good company. But yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited. Yeah. This is like my third or fourth podcast in my life. So I feel like I'm a pro.
Yes. That's more than the average person has ever done. So that's awesome. And even me, at least I've only been on the host side. So So that's pretty cool.
Okay. Well, if I ever start a podcast, you're going to be on mine. How about that?
Woohoo!
Okay.
I love it. I love it. So you were like interning with my dad or something?
Yeah. So, oh boy, we got to go back in time here, Rachel, to a different time. But I guess thought I was going to, when I was in high school, long story short, I didn't know what I was going to do. Went to college, didn't know what I was going to do. And I could bore you with the story, but God called me to ministry. And when I graduated from high school, or from college rather, I applied to like all these churches from all over the country, not one call. Cool. Okay. Yeah. I guess I'm not going to do youth ministry. And so I got a job with the American Cancer Society in Amarillo, which I loved that job. And so while we were kind of, that was on my heart. Right. So Shanda, of course, my wife, Bobby, was her youth pastor. And so we were looking for ways to serve. Called Bobby up. He was serving in Amarillo. And I said, hey, can you need some help? And he said, come on over. So yeah, I was his official intern for a while until I got my first part-time youth minister gig. Yeah.
That is so cool. That's awesome. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
The connections.
So fun.
And yeah, it'll be fun to hear more about that early days too.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Youth ministry was a different time, Rachel.
Oh, I bet.
Different time back then. Yeah. You could still play games like Chubby Bunny. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
You throw the marshmallows in. And now
I feel like we played that back when I was in high school, probably. Or like middle school.
You're a better person for it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's those things that shape us, right?
Yes. Sadly, that's true. Yeah.
For better or for worse, but
yeah, either way, absolutely.
So I would love to, now that we've kind of done a little bit of an intro, to have you introduce who you are, a little bit about your family, and kind of what your current role is.
Yeah, so I live in Frisco, Texas right now, and I've been here for 14 years, serving at this church for 14 years, served at a church in Amarillo for 10. And so I'm kind of one of those guys that shows up at church and doesn't leave for a while. But I'm doing student ministry now. Love it. I'm in a little bit of a larger church now than I was in Amarillo. So I've kind of done both worlds. But I'm married to Shanda, who we mentioned already. And we've been married for 25 years. So yeah.
Congratulations.
And I have 2 kids. My son's a senior. He's graduating here just in a few weeks. Nice. And then my daughter's taken over more of my personality. She was just Elsa in the middle school play Frozen this weekend. So
that's so cool.
My son is kind of the introvert and my daughter is mini me. So
got it.
Yeah.
She's basically living a lot of people's dream in that role.
She is. Oh, she loved it. And at the end of the show, they were trying to make money. They couldn't do the regular concession. So they had this idea to sell tickets to take pictures with the princesses at the end. And she thought she was like famous.
That is so fun.
And like little kids running up to her and
yes.
Yeah, it was fun.
Yes. That's amazing. So was she singing in it or was it just like
she sang and was really good. Yeah. Wow. She really did a great job. So
that's legit.
I'm like, now exciting. I have it is, except for now I'm like, are you gonna go to some, theater school in New York that I don't have to pay for this?
Right.
So I'm a little scared. But
makes sense for sure. Well, tell her congratulations and your son too for graduation. That's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. I teach high school dance. So we're in that end of year flow as well. And winding down.
What's your favorite thing what do you like to dance? What's your favorite?
That is a hard question. I started out really loving like ballet was my main thing.
Okay.
But I've probably come to really love modern dance.
Okay.
It's like
a little bit
of hip hop. Well, that too. A little bit of hip hop. Okay. Modern dance more in the like contemporary sense. Like I feel like we use all these weird terms, like kind of more like instrumental music and stuff like that, kind of like interpretive almost.
Oh, interpretive kind of dance. Okay.
I don't know how to explain it, but yeah.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
But hip hop, I try with hip hop. I kind of, I look a little awkward, but I try. So it's good.
That's good.
It's fun to teach and, usually, students are really fun about just rolling with it. So it's good.
Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah. So I know like youth pastor is a major role for you in your life. And you kind of spoke on it a little bit already, but how you first got kind of the ministry bug, like what made you want to go into ministry?
Yeah. So really, like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do in college at all. And I was just really searching and went to Sky Ranch, which is a camp in Texas. And I don't know how I got in. Honestly, I was really new to my faith, didn't know much. And so I got in and I was a camp counselor.
Oh, cool.
And so through that, I really saw for the first time what Christian community really looked like. And so I was like, oh, okay. So you guys don't cuss? Yeah, me neither. Cool. Oh, you guys don't, right? I mean, I just saw for the first time, like real community, like what real Christ-like living was like. And it just changed my world. And through that process, I ended up talking to Shanda, met her there.
Oh,
and
cool.
She asked me this question on a date. She said, what does God want you to do? And I have never heard that before in my life, because I didn't grow up in church at all. And so I was like, what? Like, I don't know. And so this will kind of go and tie into later, but I wanted to be a comedian. And I was like, that's what I'm going to do. I want to be a comedian. And she said, well, what do you think God wants you to do? And I said, well, if he wouldn't have made me funny, he wouldn't want me to be a comedian. And that was the only worldview I knew. Right. But that question rocked me. And I was like, I've never asked the Lord that question. And that sounds dumb now, doesn't it? But
I mean, it makes sense though.
Never had that framed before. And, being really in a Christian community for the first time. So I was like, okay. So I got back from Sky Ranch. I got invited to this church in Lubbock, Texas, when I went to Tech, and got invited to their church. And there was a guy there who was he was youth pastor and the music guy. Okay. He hated youth, loved music. And so, but he got the gig. And so he saw me come into the church, hardly any young people there. And he was like, oh, this is my ticket. And so he's like, let's spend time together. Let's go to lunch. And next thing you know, I'm teaching, and next thing you know, I'm in charge of a car wash. Next thing you know. So, and he's just kind of, mentoring me. I don't even know I'm being mentored, but that's what he's doing. And so I kind of became the youth pastor, and like in a weird kind of way, like even though he was getting paid for it, I was doing the work,
Gotcha.
So I remember that. And I was like my junior year in college, and I was like, I can see myself doing this. And so they finally got enough money to pay me a little bit. And so I just fell in love with it. And I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. And I kind of had not to get all Dr. Phil on you, but I had, just a rough childhood with my family and stuff. And so, so it was important for me to like, this is a way I could give back. This is a way I could help other students going through the same. This is how I could point students to Christ and be a world changer. That's kind of why I got into it.
Yeah, that's awesome. And definitely is a huge thing, the role of student ministry and youth ministry to speak, like you said, speak into kids' lives, speak into kids, whatever.
The youths of the day.
The youths of today. But yeah, that, you could be that person that shifts everything, well, God would shift everything, but like to introduce them to God, which is so awesome. Or to be that person that cares, about their life. So
yeah. Just be someone who loves them and cares about them and a safe place for them to talk. And, so yeah.
Yeah. Youth group was definitely one of my favorite things growing up, for sure. All the crazy games, which I'm excited to ask you about later, but
yeah.
So, and then you were saying, so kind of your first in was camp. So did you ever really experience youth group as a student yourself?
No. Okay. Well, I got saved at, I found the Lord. I guess a girl had invited me. My girlfriend at the time invited me to a D-Now, which is kind of a weekend retreat where you stay the night and host homes, and then you come up to the church and do different things. And the way she coined it, she was like, made it sound like we were going to be together all weekend. So I was like, yeah, girl, what kind of church you go to? So I ended up going, and I remember being in the gym, and they're like, guys over here, girls over here. And I was like slow motion, like, no. And I never saw her again in the weekend. And another crazy question. So the question that one of the guys asked me is like, where would you spend eternity? Like, he just had a one-on-one with me. And I was like, I've never heard that before. Yeah. These questions through life that people have asked me. I was like, never heard that. So through that weekend, I was like, man, I'm a sinner. I need forgiveness. And so even though I accepted Christ in high school, I didn't have any other friends who went. My family didn't go. So it was it was like Sunday morning only. Like, I was the kid who went every 7 weeks.
Yeah.
On donut day, Right. So I never really plugged in,
that makes sense.
Up every now and again. Yeah. So I never really had I never went to camp as a kid. I never went to D-Now, except for that one. So yeah.
Yeah. That's just kind of cool and interesting. Like, but now it's been, you said, about 25 years. That's really awesome and so cool, especially because I feel like a lot of in youth ministry, not necessarily a bad thing, but a lot of times it's maybe they're in that for a season and then move into a different role, or, kind of like my dad, like more bivocationally doing it on the side of something else, so what do you feel like has kind of kept you in youth ministry all these years?
Yeah, well, one, I don't know what else I would do.
Yeah.
Like, I have no other skill sets, to be honest.
Nice.
I don't know. I really don't know, and I really don't. This is going to sound mean, but if you're a youth pastor, you know this. I don't like adults that much.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the adults who work with students, right?
Yes.
'Cause that's a different breed. But as a general population, I don't. I just don't see myself talking to adults. So
I get that.
so
I get that.
Yeah, and also I want to be. I mean, I tell my staff all the time, like if I'm just the too old man, or sometimes if I turn into the grumpy old man, like just let me know when it's time for me to go. And I want to, but I want to serve well. So I want to be like, to me, I don't think it matters. Matter of fact, I think the older I get, the wiser I get.
Mm-hmm.
And I've become a parent now. So now I'm like, oh yeah, maybe we shouldn't do that activity. Or maybe I'm thinking more along those lines. Right. So, and a lot of churches still hire the 18-year-old, and I think to myself, why would a church hire an 18-year-old to be like, I mean, good and bad, right?
Right.
But like, wow, I remember when my church hired me at 20 years old, like I had no business like taking kids on trips but they just let me do it. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of interesting in the church world. I hadn't really thought about that, but you're right. I mean, you're kind of, even with a lot of, young teachers, you're not that much older than them. So it's kind of definitely a learning curve and figuring it out and sort of fake it till you make it a little bit. And yeah, that's awesome though. Love it. So thinking back to my experience in youth ministry, definitely a lot of kind of like Chubby Bunny and like fun games and craziness. Yeah. So do you have any favorite stories from over the years?
Oh man. I mean, I have we were literally just going through memories last night and laughing about different things, but and there's kind of this shift in student ministry that's happening where we've kind of become professional, where everyone's Hillsong and everyone's got cool lights. And I don't even own skinny jeans, but to me, there still needs to be joy in student ministry. There still needs to be those games, because we need to come together to laugh. And when we can laugh, then truth can enter our hearts. Right. So, little play, and that's not answering the question. I'll get there, but I just want to say that because I think, man, youth ministry is a place like to have fun, and yes, there's serious topics, of course, and yes, we're going to worship, of course, but there's a place for those silly, stupid games that just frees us up, right? So
creates connections too,
Yeah, absolutely. So, probably one of the worst games we ever did. We played this game called. It sounds so inappropriate, but just go with me. It's called Lick or Bite.
Okay.
And we would have this girl that would come up on stage, dressed up. It was like a Valentine's thing. She dressed up like a Cupid, and people would hold out their finger. They would hold out their finger, and she would either lick or bite it.
Oh my goodness!
We were like, what kind of game is this? But that was a game, and everyone in the crowd would scream, "Lick or bite, lick!" And I don't know. Looking back on it now, I'm like, that was pretty stupid. But,
especially now in like pandemic era, some of the things that that in of itself is a little crazy just by itself. But like, even when you see stuff in movies now or like on TV, it's like, did we used to do that? Yeah.
Did we used to just, there was another game way back in the way. And I don't know who came up with these names for these games. So viewer discretion, but one of them was called Suck or Blow, and you would get a card and you would, like a playing card.
Oh yeah.
You would one person would suck the card, and then you'd have to lean into the other person like you're going to kiss them, but you have the card. And while you blew the card, the other person would have to suck the card, and you would just pass this card around the youth group.
Oh my
goodness. Was a game. Yeah. That was a classic game. And I'm like, who comes up with this stuff?
Yeah.
Like what? So some things have changed for the better.
Yes,
for sure. But those are the kind of games in the 90s that you can just get away with.
My goodness. Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty hilarious. Did you all play like Mafia? Some of those?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And super fun.
Super great game.
Yeah.
And then what's the other game where you I can't think of the name of it, where you I'll butcher it, but everybody sits around and you put a name in a bowl, and then you have to you say the names once. Everybody has to guess what that is.
Oh yeah. Like fishbowl or something, or I've heard different names. Yeah.
So
but that one's super fun. I play that with my students sometimes, but make it super fun with dance terminology and stuff like that.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm Roger Rabbit. Yeah. Okay.
So fun. Awesome. Well, as you've mentioned, at least a little bit here and there, that you really wanted to get into comedy. I happen to know that you did get into comedy and that you are currently doing comedy. So how did that get started?
Yeah. So I can remember, Rachel, like in fifth grade, they had us draw what we wanted to do with our life. And I remember drawing two curtains and a microphone.
Oh, nice.
And I wish I still had it, but I was like, that's what I wanted to do. And so for my whole life, I thought that's what I was going to do. And then of course the Lord intervened, and, I got asked that tough question about what does God want? So I kind of was in this, like, just like this predicament of like, God, I want to be funny, but you're calling me to ministry. Like, can they exist right together? And so there was a group called the Skit Guys, which were, just Google them, skitguys.com if you've never heard of them. They were a big, big, big deal in the 90s and early, and still are today. It's different now, but they used to just travel. And I remember seeing them as a young youth pastor at a conference, and I was like, I want to do that. Like, that's what I want to do. Like, and it showed me for the first time that God could use my gift, whatever it was, for ministry, right?
That's super powerful.
And I was like, because comedy, you're thinking, well, and really back, some churches are funny, but most churches are, or at least adult services are not really that funny.
Yeah.
Or really that most of the time, not even fun. But like, so there's this conflict within inside of me, like, can I do it? And I saw them and I was like, it was like, that's what I want to do.
Nice.
So I remember just going, that's what I wanted. So me and a friend named Terry, who your dad also knows, we in Amarillo, we just said, man, we're going to start doing skits. So we just started doing skits for the youth group, like just little cheesy little things to kind of get people laughing, whatever. I'm sure most of it was horrible, bombed, but every now and again, the kids would laugh and we'd remember it and we'd write it down. And
nice.
So we just started, then a friend of mine got us to do a camp, and we ended up doing a couple of skits during the week for camp. And so then we were just like, man, this is awesome. Well, a couple years later, we're at Amarillo in Chili's, and one of the Skit Guys walks into Chili's, and we're like, oh my, and we're just total fangirling, just like, oh my gosh, she's there.
Yes.
And so we walk over and we're like, hey, we want to do what you do. And he was so kind and so gracious. He's like, here's my phone number. Y'all get a couple of skits together next time, because they were doing some gigs in Amarillo at the time. And they're like, next time I'm in town, I want to see him.
Oh, wow.
So he was so kind, and we were just like freaked out, like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
So he came to town and he laughed at a couple of our skits, gave us some pointers, and then next thing you know, we get there's a big camp at the time. It was called Super Summer, still around today, but it was a big, big deal in the 90s in Baptist life. And they called us and like, hey, one of the Skit Guys said, that you guys were good. Would you be willing to do a camp? And it just took off. And so that was like, I don't even know what year that was. Late 90s, early 2000s.
Okay,
and
cool.
So that kind of took off. And so because of that one kind of big exposure camp, we just probably Terry and I for a good 4 or 5 years would just travel almost every summer. She was a teacher.
Okay.
So we would take off in the summer and do like 7 weeks of camp. And then we'd kind of do events as we could, because we were both working. So kind of just, we got those things. So God just kind of opened up that door and was like, I'm going to let you use your humor to do, to use it. It was so
That's
cool.
so fun.
Yeah, it was so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And then what has kind of the journey been since then with comedy?
Yeah. So Terry left, I guess, I don't even know, probably, gosh, I don't know. I wouldn't even be able to put a year on it. She went up to school, and then so I was kind of looking for somebody, and a guy named Manley, he was a youth pastor somewhere. We met at a camp, kind of hit it off, and then we just picked right back up. And so we started a thing called Hurt and Manley.
Love it.
Where we just did skits and did the same thing. And so we've been doing that for the last, I guess, 15 years or so.
Yeah.
Just traveling, getting to do some things. And it's been so, I mean, I tell people all the time, I'm like a C-list Christian celebrity.
Yeah.
Like really C-list, like really way down, done some big gigs. I mean, we've, we opened for Skillet one time. So,
cool.
Big deal. Yeah. We thought we were big time.
Loved Skillet back in the day. They're really cool.
They're still around.
That's true. I need to look up their new stuff.
Yeah. I'm looking over here because I have a picture of, we were with, I'm trying to think. Skillet. That's the Skillet one. And then we were with Grits one time. I don't know if you remember that rap group Grits. But so we've done some really big stuff. And then we did a lot of just churches. I mean, we did a lot of those churches where it's like, hey, we're going to have 50 kids. And you get them as like 7.
Yeah.
And you're like, and not that it's about a number, but it's really hard to do comedy with 7 kids.
Oh yeah. Cause it's a lot about the feedback and the reaction that you get.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we've done a lot of those too, but, man, and I've really just become, there was a time where you were like, man, when you first dreamed it, you wanted to do like the big things, right? You're like, I'm going to fill a Coliseum, or whatever. But then as time goes on, sometimes you get those gigs and it's like, that really wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And I really kind of prefer the smaller gig. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you feel like you have more of an impact. So there's been that up and down of that, like, oh, we're making it, whatever making it means. I have no idea. But you think, oh, the next gig is going to be the next level. And then you get to the next level and you're like, then you go back down to the 7-kid youth group thing again. Yeah. And when you're like, God, what are you doing? But God's just been like, you just be faithful to the opportunities I'm giving you.
Yeah.
Man. And I do think sometimes I wrestle that with myself, but I'm like, man, thank you, God, that I still get to use my comedic gifts, even in the small things. Like, you're giving me a platform, even though no one knows me. I mean, very few, right? But I'm getting to do what I love to do.
Right. So, that is huge.
So cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good point as far as like the idea of success and what that looks like for people, and kind of, I don't know, what has your thought process been around that, or how has God like worked in you with what success means?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'll be honest, like when you first start and you're getting bigger and bigger gigs and more, you think, man, I'm on the track. Like I'm going to the tippy top, whatever. And you just think bigger. I mean, I guess I always thought, and I think this is, I need to hear this for myself. So let me just say this to myself, but maybe people who are listening, comparison kills your joy. We know that, but you start looking around and you go, man, well, I'm not the Skit Guys. I'm not that guy. I'm not, I'm not that comedian. Look, and you always just think, I want that gig.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of life, when we were kind of going, was a lot of that was just, I want that gig, not being content in the gig that God's given you, And so that I wrestled with that and became bitter for a lot of those years of just, God, why aren't you giving me more bigger, larger doors?
Yeah.
And it was hard, but through it all, I mean, I guess I've just now come to this realization the last couple of years of like, hey, I got you, and I'm going to put you where I want you to go, and you just need to be obedient in what I give you.
So good, yeah.
But that's the process. I mean, it sounds so easy, but yeah, there was some time of bitterness for sure of like, God, why aren't you taking me to the next quote unquote level? Yeah.
And
so
makes a lot of sense.
And I think for student ministry too, like, right. I mean, I know I got to struggle with, man, my building's not as good as that building, or my youth group's not as big as that youth group. And man, I just tell guys all the time, just, man, be where you're planted. And I mean, obviously if God's telling you to move, you move, but don't move without him.
Yeah.
And just be content where you are, and be so like God's using you in that moment and with your giftedness. And we just get so, I don't know, comparison.
Yeah.
People.
It's huge. It's a huge thing. And it's so, easy to get caught up in, for sure, wanting to measure up or, and I think a lot of times we also see, at least for some industries, maybe like, you kind of see the person that's down the road a good, like 10 years from you, even just in a regular, 9-to-5 job or whatever. And then you don't really think about like, okay, they're like 10 years ahead of me, it's like, but I want to be there, and I feel like that's kind of how we get sometimes with art too, so
for sure. And again, and so the idea of success, I would just say, man, why do we let culture, or why do we let someone else define our success? Like, you define your success. Like, so for me, I was just like, thank you, Lord, that I get to do a youth group of 30. Like, I mean, I still get to do that, right? Like, so it's just a perspective. For sure.
Yeah. And I love what you said about, impact being huge, and it could be a huge impact with 30 kids, and maybe even connect more than with the thousands of students, So I think that's super.
I remember we did one gig where we thought we were stars. Like it was a Christ in Youth, which is a big youth organization. And we were literally flying to all these cities, and like Friday, Saturday, we were in Portland, we were on the West Coast, And I remember Portland was like 4,000 students, and we thought, man, we have arrived, like we are big time. But we just never talked to anybody. It was literally, boom, 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 and you were flying out to get back home for Sunday, and so you just, even though it was impactful, you never got to talk to anybody.
Yeah.
Whereas if you go to a 100-person, camp and you're there for the week, like you're really kind of getting to speak to students, and so it's just a different deal.
Yeah, for sure. You get those conversations and connections, and yeah, that's so good. And I think that applies for probably everyone in some way, whatever their thing is. So super helpful. I appreciate the perspective. Just want to take a quick moment to pause for my conversation with Chris and tell you about Bluehost. So if you are considering starting a website or maybe revamping your website, I would highly recommend Bluehost. Bluehost is who I use for the podcast website, and they are just super user-friendly, and they integrate really beautifully with WordPress. And starting today through May 27th, they are discounting all their term lengths on their shared hosting packages. So that means right now for their basic package, that's usually about $9 a month, it's only $2.95 a month. So this is an awesome time to start that side project you've been thinking about, or to revamp the website that you already have. This limited time offer also comes with a free domain name for the first year, easy step-by-step setup, and free 24/7 lifetime support. Again, this offer is going on now through May 27th, so just a couple of days. Summer is a great time to take the next step on that vision or that dream that you have in the back of your mind. My favorite thing about Bluehost was how easy it was to really get started and to be able to pick a template. And it's been pretty easy to maintain over this past year as well. So feel free to reach out to me if you have questions about getting started with Bluehost, and I'd be happy to let you know my experience. If you're interested in learning more, you can check out the discount at creativeimpactpodcast.com/Bluehost. That's creativeimpactpodcast.com/BLUEHOST. Now let's get back to my conversation with Chris. So currently, what is kind of your, your current role? And I know you mentioned in what we talked about before, just some about speaking, and that you're moving more into a speaking role, I guess, in certain scenarios.
Yeah. And church roles has changed, like we talked about, skit teams and stuff are not, they're not cool anymore.
Yeah.
No one's doing drama teams or anything like that.
Yeah, that's true. So, that is kind of sad.
And probably okay. Yeah. And probably needed to in some ways. So everything's become way different. So I'm kind of just saying, okay, God, people aren't doing that as much. So what's next? And so I've just been doing a lot more speaking lately, just doing the camps and different weekend retreats for friends, or, if someone's hurt or whatever. And still getting to be human. I mean, still getting to be funny. I mean, one of the things I learned about myself, which again, going back to the struggle of who God's created me to be versus the church. I remember being I love being in front of people. Put me on a stage. I love it. Right. But I wrestled with that because I was like, well, is that egotistical? Is that selfish? Is that right? You just kind of think through all these things. Am I just being, I don't know, all about me? Right. And I did a personality test. This is probably 15, 20 years ago, but it set me free because the guy just basically talked to me as I did the test. One of the things that came out in the personality test was I'm best when I'm in front of people. That's kind of who God created you to be, is you're best when you're in front of a group of people.
That's super cool.
When you're on stage, that's when you're happy. So he's like, you need to be set free and quit thinking that you're selfish, or that's just kind of where you're most happy. So be happy. Right.
Yeah.
And being that kind of set me free.
Yeah.
So now here I am going, I'm getting older now, as well, but I still have that's true. I'm still happy as I'm in front of people. So I get to be in front of my students every week, which I love. But now I'm doing a little more speaking. And using humor, right. Just to open up hearts. Again, I think that's just so important. Be funny, or at least try being funny.
Yeah.
there's always that one kid that's just going to stare you down the whole time.
Right.
You're not funny, but even he's thinking something that is doing in his heart. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing now. That's a long answer to that. Sorry.
No, you're good.
Just like, that's what I'm doing now is like still thinking, okay, skit teams are over, but I still want to be in front of people. I want to use my gifts.
Mm-hmm.
And when I use my gifts, that helps other people. Right.
Yeah.
And whatever art you're doing, like just like my encouragement is just do it, because if that makes you happy and you feel a void in the world, it's making someone else happy.
Yeah.
Right. And that gets complicated in church world, because right, sometimes we don't like dancing in church, depending on what denomination you are, right, may be frowned upon. But I'm like, well, if that's your gift, if you can do it like in a dance studio, why can't you do it in church?
Right.
Why can't I get some of that credit and glory? I don't know how that works. I don't have a dance team, but I love it when I go to other cultures that do. Right?
Yeah.
I'm like, can we have some of that? So I think art needs to be reflected in our churches. And right now our churches are all just about worship and speaking. And I'm like, there's so many other gifts.
Yeah.
Right. There's so many other gifts. So artists, like, we need your voice in the church.
That's so good. Amen.
I think I didn't answer the question maybe, but I got on a little thing. But man, you know what I'm saying? Like, whatever God has given you, like, let's use that.
Yeah.
And we elevate the speaking.
Yeah, that's true. The speaking,
like,
and
if you don't speak, then you but like, no, like whatever art you have, it's video making, if it's graphics, which graphics have come a long way and all those kinds of things. But man, use your if you're an artist, please go to the church and just force it upon them.
Yes. Be willing to, kind of push the, I don't know, the barrier a little bit.
The envelope. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. I remember, I think it was like Andrew Peterson or someone was talking about his son and how his son is a visual artist, and the pastor asked him, kind of commissioned him to create a piece of art for a sermon series. And they had it displayed in the lobby, and, everyone would pass by it when they would go in, and it was incorporated into the messages. And he was literally I was crying the whole series, because just the fact that they had valued my son's gift or whatever. And I thought that was so cool, and where can we do that more, whether it's visual art or dance or comedy, all of those things. So
I love it. That's good.
So good. And it's just so true. I don't know. I guess we get stuck in our safe, comfortable boxes.
We get stuck. Yeah. And then we get a little fearful of art.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, we're like, what's going to happen if we let this person come in here and just paint or dance or, it's kind of like the uncontrollable, right? We don't, so I don't know. Maybe that's part of it. Who knows?
Could be. And I guess that's kind of, that's how God works too. If,
right.
The Holy Spirit,
he doesn't always fit into a 90-minute service, right? Sometimes,
exactly. So
he does what he wants.
I love that. And I think that's really powerful for everyone that's listening to hear, whether they're an artist or are in, the church world. And even if you're not, if God's placed that gift in you, I think that's awesome to get involved and try to pursue that more, for sure. Love it. Love it. So do you have any future dreams ahead of you that, things on the horizon that you're hoping to explore more?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what else I would do. And as I get older, I think, well, what is a 70-year-old man? How I do think about this. When I get into my 60s, late 60s, 70s, what can I do to get up to be on stage?
Yeah.
Because there's going to be eventually the youth. I still can do some youth ministry, right? But you don't want your, youth ministry to be 70. And I don't want to be a pastor, so. I don't know. I dabble in some improv down in Dallas every now and again. So I got to find a way that they're going to let this old man on stage somewhere. Right. I don't know. But maybe I'll try acting I don't know. I kind of think through that sometimes, just because when I know about myself is I know that, and if I don't do that, I'll be pretty miserable. So
makes sense.
I don't know.
Yeah.
What can
very
I do?
Cool.
Yeah.
Open-ended right now.
I can do that. Yeah.
And actually, it made me curious. Do you remember what the personality test was that you did?
Yeah, it's called, I highly encourage someone to take it. It's called laughyourway.com.
Okay.
Which doesn't sound like it's a personality test at all, but it is. It's actually a marriage tool.
Oh, okay.
What they do is they get couples to laugh together, and then they kind of figure out their personality test. But it was super helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So laughyourway.com, and it's just a personality test. And it's like all the personality tests, but the way that it's, they're all the same. That's kind of, the colors are different or whatever. But yeah, it was
kind of rearrange it and give different labels or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah.
I think all that just self-discovery stuff, or the more we learn about ourselves, I think the better, because we kind of start to see maybe the blind spots a little bit and, some of the strengths, like you said, and where we fit the best. Yeah.
Yeah. When you know who you are, you'll know what to do. Right. And I don't know. Just talking to students and stuff, they go after money. They go after the fame or whatever. And man, just knowing who you are and doing more of that.
Yeah.
That's the win in life. So if you're a dancer, but you don't ever dance, then you're probably not happy. Right. So know who you are and do more of that.
Yeah. That's good wisdom right there. Love it. Well, I know you kind of already touched on this, but I like to ask everyone, is there something on your heart that you want to share with other artists right now?
Yeah. I guess maybe I've already said it, but I would just say this again, like whatever God's put in your heart, please do it.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people, we just get scared, right? And I get it. And I'm scared too sometimes of different things, but if God's put it in your heart, just get out of the boat, walk on the water. You may fail, it may not go well, but just do it, because when you are obedient to what God's gifted you with, or what even God's put on your heart, there's a blessing for someone else. And when you're not doing it, you're not only robbing yourself, but you're robbing someone else of the impact that, that they need to see.
Yeah.
So I would just say we live in this kind of society where money is, and I get it, right? I have a mortgage, but do what God's calling you to do. Quit being so scared and just go, but easier said than done, right?
For sure.
But I think back to my own story, and not that my story is a great success, but what I started in my 20s, I'm still doing today because I was willing to step out and just be bold, right? And it may not look like a success story to someone else, but me just stepping out. I've literally done sketch comedy for the last 25 years or whatever.
Yeah.
Getting paid a little bit along the way and
That's
making
awesome.
some impact along the way. So whatever God's calling you to do, I beg you, especially as an artist, sometimes artists are melancholy, kind of like up and down. Me too. And we can just get negative, and we can talk ourselves out of almost everything, because we're sensitive, maybe more sensitive people to feelings and to honestly what God's doing, but also what people think about us. Right. So do what God's telling you to do.
Yeah. Not getting held back by fear or fear of what other people think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oof, that's good. Hard. Like you said, hard, but good.
So yeah.
Love that.
So just go for it. Yeah. Do it.
So
love
good.
it. Love it.
Yeah. So I was curious, is there any stories you want to share that we didn't really hit on yet? Like any fun experiences or
you
memorable moments?
Fun youth pastor stories. And there's so many that come to mind, but I'll give you a few. I remember back in the day, you would have a church van and you would actually take kids home after youth group or whatever. I took this family they just came for the day. And I took this one kid home, and he was so quiet and awkward, and he just wouldn't talk, so to get him to talk, I'd pull up to random houses and be like, "Is this your house?" He'd be like, "No." Then I would go 3 more houses and "Is this your house?" "No." So I did it 10 times on the way home, just trying to get conversation, trying to be funny. And when I dropped him off, he opened the door to the van, and he looked back at me and he goes, "I hate you as a youth pastor." And he slammed the door. And I was like, "Oh, you didn't hate me as a human. You didn't hate me as a person. You just hated me as a youth pastor." Awesome. He never came back.
Oh,
so, I don't know why that one stuck in my mind.
That is pretty memorable, I would think.
I was like, I just met the kid.
Yeah.
I hate you as a youth pastor.
Wow.
But yeah, a lot of things about youth ministry. It's funny because you have to be so many things. Like you have to be a relationship counselor. I never will forget talking to this one girl. Went on a retreat, and she's crying. telling me I broke up with what's his name and it's horrible and I can't live without him. And I listened to her cry for probably like, it seemed forever, but probably a couple of hours of just hearing her cry. Right. And so then I'm like, you're gonna be okay. You're gonna pray for her. The next morning at breakfast, she's holding hands with another guy, like a new guy. And I'm like, my goodness. Did we not you couldn't live without him? I just spent 2 hours of my life consoling you. I guess we're good now. I guess we're okay.
Guess we're okay now. Yeah.
So guess we're all healed up.
Maybe not. Maybe the rebound too, but
yeah. I'm like, what?
Oh goodness.
There's just so many. Yeah. I don't know. There's so many.
Yeah, it's a lot of
things I've done wrong.
Where as a youth pastor. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's like event planner, counselor,
trip planner,
teacher.
Yeah.
All the things.
Yeah. Teacher, sermon, entertainer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
But it's the best job in the world because it's what God called me to do.
So good.
Which is what I'm saying to everybody at home. Do what you're supposed to do. Yeah. And you'll never work a day in your life.
Yes. So. Good quote right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Love it. Well, a question that I like to ask everyone is, what is one of your favorite things right now? Can seriously be anything.
Oh, one of my favorite things? Wow, one of my favorite things. So many favorite things, but yeah, well, okay. Well, one of my favorite things right now is this is so nerdy of me, but I'm really I'm just Dave Ramsey right now. Like,
I'm actually right there with you. Well, are you pretty close? Okay. Yeah. I love his stuff. I've been reading more lately. So,
okay. Yeah. I'm just, when people get in my car, it's just Dave Ramsey podcast on all the time. They're like, is this all you listen to? I'm like, I am in.
Yeah.
I am in. And mainly because I feel a lot better about my life after I hear some of the stories, like, well, all right, at least I'm not that guy.
Right. Exactly. Like, well, I guess I'm doing okay.
Yeah. But I'm stressing my wife out because I'm like, let's pay the mortgage off, and I'm doing all these,
gazelle intensity or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. And she's like, okay, let's settle down. Like, let's maybe don't listen to so much Dave. So we'll get it paid off. Just breathe, So.
Yes. That's great. That's great. Well, I will definitely link to some Dave Ramsey in the show notes for sure, because he's got great wisdom for sure. And I mean, it's basically like biblical truth, just put in a really direct and down to earth package, which is great. So yeah, I appreciate it.
So, and I'm also I'm into we're big Disney fans at my house, so everything Disney we love it. So I worked there in college.
Oh, cool.
So I'm a big nerd. We love going. This summer, we're going to Universal Studios, which we've never done before. So I kind of feel like I'm cheating.
Yeah.
Sorry, Walt. But my daughter's been reading all the Harry Potters.
Oh, yeah.
So we're doing the Harry Potter run this summer.
Nice. So what was your role or your job at Disney?
Yeah, I worked at on Main Street, USA, which if you go into it's Magic Kingdom, and right on the left, in Old Main Street, there's the Emporium, which is the biggest. It's the last store on the way out. And so I had a little tie and I had the polyester. I was in the gift shop. Yeah.
Very cool. I love that.
And my claim to fame is Michael Jackson came in one night. He rented the park out. He wanted to shop. So we all had to go downstairs into the basement while he shopped. Because you couldn't talk to Michael. He just needed to shop, and then someone would check him out. But we were all peeking through the door and
I bet
seeing Michael, seeing his entourage.
That's really, really legit. That's super fun. Yeah. With Disney, do y'all have Disney Plus? Random.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. Do you like Disney Plus?
I haven't actually subscribed yet, but I don't know why I haven't, because I feel like that's totally.
Right up your alley.
Right up my alley. Exactly. So maybe at some point, but saving up right now. But yes.
You can't Dave Ramsey too much, because then you'll cut that Disney Plus right out.
Exactly. Yeah. I know. But do love Disney and all things Disney. It's so much fun. So speaking of Elsa, it's like full circle here.
Full circle. Let it go. That's
exactly. Well, this has been awesome, Chris. It's super fun to get to know you, and also just thank you for sharing, your story, your wisdom from the years of ministry and comedy, and just getting to, hear from your heart has been really awesome. And I'd love to let people know how they can find your work or just connect with you, that kind of thing. So what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so you can do a couple of things. You can follow me on the Insta at HurtMan21. And then I'm on Twitter. I think it's Chris Hurtman on Twitter.
Okay.
Chris Hurt on Facebook. HurtandManley.com, which is our website. But
awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of dated, but take a look. And then those are how you can find me. So
perfect.
And then I'm at First Baptist Frisco. So if nothing else spells, just Google that. We have on YouTube, we have Blue Frisco. So that's kind of where you can see messages, and then we have a lot of fun, stupid videos on there as well. So
okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely link to all those so people can check it out and reach out to you and that kind of stuff. But yeah, again, just super appreciate you doing this. And it's
fun good to connect with you, Rachel. Appreciate you, what you're doing in this space. So it's awesome. Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That was so much fun. Chris definitely brought me back to my youth group days and just some really fun memories from growing up. I also really loved all the nuggets of wisdom that he incorporated throughout, and I hope it spoke to you today as well. I'd love to hear from you and hear your thoughts on today's episode, so feel free to come find me on Facebook or Instagram at Creative Impact Podcast. Also, it would mean so much if you would take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe to the show. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the episode, next week I'm joined by my friend Kayla Sokoloff, and we have a fun conversation about this past year and all the different things that we've learned, that we've grown from, mistakes we've made, and also ways that we're looking forward to the future going into the summer and then into a new school year next year. Thank you so much for listening to the Creative Impact Podcast. The music for the show was produced by Michael Cash. I invite you to share the show with a friend, check out Bluehost if you're interested in creating a website, and I'll see you next week for my conversation with Kayla Sokoloff.